All right, here we are.
Yes, hey, you didn't think that you'll see four of us here, did you? You probably did if you were looking at the avatars and looking at everybody posting it all. Thank you very much for joining us for Job Seeker Nation. This is the program, and probably one of the few programs you see in your timeline every week. We're talking about job search, and with us, we got a posse week this week. It's not just Jack and I, but if you have any questions, feel free to start it up in the chat. We'd love to hear from you. What are your job search dilemmas and what's happening in your world? We would love to hear and we'd love to respond and answer your questions. Whew, we got a few introductions to get through. As always, in the catty corner for me on your screen is my man Jack Kelly, who's my co-host. He's senior contributor to Forbes, founder of Recruiter.io. How are you, sir?
Good. Let me just. Do you hear any feedback? I don't know if that's coming from me or you guys. Is it sound okay?
I can
Uh,
hear some.
Okay.
a little bit. I don't know who it's coming from.
Okay. So,
Now
oh
I
yeah,
don't
so I'm
hear it.
good. Yeah. Okay. All
Now
right. Good.
it's
I
good.
just figured. Yeah.
Now it's good.
So
And
yeah, all good.
yep, so good deal. Let me introduce the other parts of our panel here. We have Kevin D. Turner, brand strategist extraordinaire. If you ever looked at his LinkedIn profile and follow his timeline, you'll learn a whole bunch about LinkedIn. That's one of the reasons why we have him here. He gives us great designs, great advice, and welcome, Kevin. How are you, sir?
Fantastic and truly honored to be with you guys. You guys are incredible, all of you.
Well, thank you. Honored to have you here. And then, of course, my other guy here, Kenneth Lang, who writes about LinkedIn quite a bit and has quite a following. Love having him as well and his very wise insights. How are you, sir?
Doing really well. Great to see my best buds. Once again, Kevin, Jack, and yourself, Mark. It's always great to be here to share my best practices.
Yes, and both Kevin and Kenneth were our other show, and since I like them a lot as a tandem, I want to have them both back on
Yeah.
this show. So again, please join us in the chat. We are willing to chat with you and help you with your job search and any questions that are related or unrelated for that fact. You may have a personal dilemma yourself. Of course, I want to get right to a lot of stuff that's regarding LinkedIn, and we're going to stick with LinkedIn for the majority of the program. But I did want to kind of, talk about what has been talked about all week: the extended pandemic, unemployment benefits ending on Monday. Perhaps is not more cowbell, but one of the solutions I imagine, and start with you, Kevin, that maybe instead of more cowbell, we should have more LinkedIn, right?
And absolutely. And I think, we've got to take responsibility for ourselves in the sense of getting our message out there, right? Refining it, defining it, and making sure everybody on LinkedIn knows who we are. And we've noticed a trend, before 2020, about 19% of our clients were getting discovered on LinkedIn for their next opportunity. And within this year, it's getting closer to 50%. So they're actually getting discovered by refining that brand, right? By using LinkedIn, by making sure their message is right and on track. It solves the problems of what, they should be hired for next. And by doing that, they're being recruited. And that's key. And if somebody's not doing it, they're really wasting their time on LinkedIn. And they're wasting many opportunities because they're out there, they're trying to find us. The system, online application system, it's overflowing. Companies are sending people out to find us. So if we don't take that step, we lose.
And when you say your clients, basically you have clientele who are job seekers and people looking to extend their business and their business efforts.
Absolutely. Well, I'd say almost 60% are currently employed. The other ones are in transition. But they're all experiencing this kind of ability now to be recruited, which they didn't have before. And it's really about getting LinkedIn active, getting it right.
Right. So, Kenneth, for us, why don't you give us the distinction between using it for business, the messaging, and maybe perhaps being a job seeker?
Sure. Well, when you're a job seeker, first of all, you're looking at your profile in the way that you want to be found. You want to make sure that you have certain keywords on there, certain skills on there. One of the things, because I do a lot of career coaching for those in transition, if you don't say in your about section that you're looking for an opportunity, if you don't have your email address in there, it's a big miss. And I think a lot of people make assumptions that you're going to be found just because. And along the lines of a small business owner, and even to some extent someone who's in transition, you want to market yourself. It's not just about the profile. It's not just about having it specific to be searched, but it's branding yourself. I know it's an overused word, but we all brand ourselves differently. And if you don't know what to do, ask. I think that's the biggest thing of all. We are all so willing to help and pay it forward, but if we don't know how to help, we can't really support you. So I think those are two very important things to think about. And, along those lines, the title section, the title should not be your job. It should be, what do you want to do? It should be marketing yourself. But again, look at other people's for advice and definitely reach out for help.
Yeah, yep. That's a great summation. I love that. Jack, I know that you see a whole bunch in your very active group, connected with Recruiter. Your perspective as a recruiter, you're on the front lines. Probably that, but in your line of work, that's a little bit different. That's not the average of what most people would see. But do you talk about LinkedIn at all with the people who come up to you and that you recruit for?
Of course. Oh, absolutely. But if I could kind of look at this from a different angle, what I'm really curious to see how it plays out, that once the benefits, the enhanced unemployment benefits lapse, would we see a greater surge of people going into the job market who may have been holding back? And then if they do go into the job market, then employment goes up, more pushes the economy forward, which could be a good thing. But I've seen some early reports when some states pulled back on the benefits, there wasn't a change. So I think once it's across the board, it'd be really interesting to see how it plays out. I mean, on the downside, it could be really problematic. If you have people who are really depending and living upon those extra benefits and they're gone, they're in a really bad state, especially if they can't find another job. On the other side, that if maybe they were using it as a way to kind of buy time, now they have to kind of dive back into the job market, which actually could end up maybe being good because sometimes you need that push to make something happen. So from that macro level, it's gonna be really interesting to see how this plays out.
Jack, I'm going to play devil's advocate.
Mm-hmm.
With more people out of losing benefits, more people are going to apply for jobs, more people are going to apply, but then you're going to have more companies they have more people to choose from and making it that much more of a challenge. So I think it's both a good news and bad news thing. I think, I'm starting to see, how I feel about the job seekers. I think there's a challenge on the hiring managers is to pick people that would be best for the future for their positions, not just a job spec. And that drives me so crazy. And as a recruiter, how do you get the message across to people who are in a hiring position that it may not be that perfect job spec, but it may be a perfect person based on other things?
Ken, I gotta tell you, it is so frustrating. It drives me nuts. Like just today, I was responding, and that's why I'm a little casual today, because I was in my just like recruiting head down kind of mode this morning, and for two separate clients, I was basically politely saying, you kind of don't get it, is that the job market has improved dramatically, compensation is up, rental prices on apartments are up, housing prices are up, and what you're offering is kind of beginning pandemic wages, and they really haven't adjusted themselves. And this is really, I think, important for the people watching it now who watch it and then watching a repeat, is that they're taking it probably personally, like what's going on. But to me, in my own opinion, what I'm seeing, it's a systemic thing, is that a lot of these companies are still kind of digging their heels in and not acknowledging that things have changed. And so then when people are looking for a job, like as you're pointing out, Ken, they want exactly what they want. If it's a job description with 10 ingredients, you want to have all 10 or 11 or 12 of them, and the compensation is going to be meh. And where most people want remote work or hybrid, they're like, no, we want you in the office. and then they wonder why they can't get people. It's a really very, to me, like a really weird dynamic at play here.
Yeah, I think that people are resistant, and the message. I mean, let's face it. Really, it's a matter of the net in shallow water. That there's going to be some, maybe not many, but some who will be easily lowballed because they were lowballed before the pandemic, and they weren't willing to. You know, there are people who are resisting. We're seeing it on the macro scale because people understand the big message that I don't want to go back to those conditions with that pay anymore. But there are the employers who are looking for the fish in shallow water, not in the deep one, to catch the some who are willing to do that. And perhaps they found ways and workarounds like they did with the last recession, where, you know, if they divvy it to other people, the work will get done. It just won't get done as a faster rate. Digging their heels in and not wanting to pay the new market rate, which is still kind of on the fringes because we don't know what the new market rate's going to look like with people moving back to rural areas and them perhaps being an uptake locally, maybe not regionally just yet. So it's still early to see how this fallout is. Kevin, you had further thoughts?
You know, at the same time, if these are issues that are presenting themselves, can you look at it as an opportunity as well? If companies want people to work in an office and you need to work, right?
Mm-hmm.
Can you position yourself to take advantage of that? If companies are not finding who they want for what dollars they're offering, do you have more of an advantage now to negotiate what that should be? Because they have to solve the issue. And if they're running into that, you've got an opportunity if you can look at these things in the reverse of the negative, right?
Well,
and apply to that. You have an opportunity to get to work. You have to obviously be able to say, yes, I can work in an office again. I'm okay with that environment because that's what's being demanded by these organizations. And they're getting all this pushback. They're finding the perfect people. And they're like, yeah, but I don't want to come into the office. Is that okay? No. Next. So can you take advantage of this in the reverse of kind of a negative positioning of what's going on? Is there that opportunity? And that's how I guess I kind of see things sometimes.
That makes sense, Kevin, because what you're kind of saying, if I understand it, is that let's say you have somebody who'd be kind of a little bit of a contrarian and say, you know, whereas let's say there's a large percentage of people who want to be remote or even hybrid, and you raise your hand and say, hey, I'm cool with going in 5 days a week. And if that's what you like, I'm there.
Even if you want it. Right?
Yeah. No, I agree with you because give you an example. I think Mark and I talked about this in other shows, is that, you know, for younger people, I would definitely recommend, you know, recent college grads and maybe a year or two in, yeah, you should go into the office because you want to know what's it like to be in an office. A lot of people don't have that experience. You know, maybe they worked in fast food during high school and college or bartending, what have you. But yeah, you want to go in the office. You want to feel the culture. You want to know what it's like. You want to get a mentor. You want to build a network now that you're out of college and your friends are all over the country and you don't see them as much. So you have to rebuild everything. So yeah, it's not a one size fits all. Yeah, and for those, they stand out. Yeah,
I think a lot of those companies too are rewarding those who do it. Right?
Yeah.
If you do come into the office, if you do this, you're going to be the person that we're going to promote into management. You're going to be the person we're going to take into the next step because you're doing what we need you to do. Right? Whereas often the people who maybe they do get to convince them into, well, I can work this remotely, or I can work this in a hybrid. I think that companies are accepting that to a degree, but they're taking those people out of the future of the company itself in a way. And so I think that does come into play, and people should realize that, you know, we're basically playing in their playground, right?
Yeah.
They make the rules in some ways. You know, if we really need to play, then sometimes we got to look at those and say, what are those rules and how can I, again, focus that I'm at an advantage to them? And
I think it's important to say that an interview, and these are all conversations. It's not about I have a job on the other end. You want to talk through how can you help the company out? Forget about the job spec. What pain points can you solve? What would make you so invaluable? And not being afraid to ask certain questions. I've gone on many interviews, and I'll say, out of curiosity, why do you need this skill and that skill? And the answer I get is, well, because it was in the job spec before. And I said, well, what's the job now? I mean, it's not what it was what do you need help with now? I can learn stuff. And I think that's the big issue here. I can learn how to do things very easily. Most of us can, just because I don't have all that experience per se, but it's a perception. Just like not every position has to be 40 hours a week. There could be part-time positions out of it, or 30-hour positions. It's just the mindset that we all have to try to break.
But I think it's a very powerful thing, though, if you're able to do both, if you're able to work from home and office and benefit the same, that we've still kind of working that kind of thing out, because young people, if they're going into office and the older people who've been at home, the older ones are mostly the ones that are going to be the mentors. But what if you're one of the few that are in the office? You're not going to necessarily feel the culture of the company at large as far as in office. And that goes about also kind of, the new culture now is going to be off and on. It's not going to be just on. It's not going to just be, well, some companies are off now. Some of them are still like out there remote. And, there's a lot of the physical dynamics, but a lot of the remote dynamics is still being figured out for most part, unless you were doing it before the pandemic. Jack?
Yes. See, and you touched upon this earlier, Mark, and I agree with you. And I think that a lot of companies still are trying to wrestle with what this new normal is going to be. So they kick the can down the road. So when it comes to hiring, so if like people who are watching this and like, why am I keep going on interview after interview after interview and after interview, and they can't make a decision? Because I think, as Mark pointed out before, they're not sure themselves how it's going to be. So they're just kind of waiting for something, somehow a sign to say, okay, here's what it is. We're going to all agree. It's going to be a hybrid across the board, 3 days in, 2 days out, and so on. And then now we can make decisions. Or it could be, let's say, the economy changes and such, more people come into the economy, maybe into the job market. So yeah, we don't have to pay as much because now we have more people to choose from. So it's almost like a stalling technique to figure out what's going to happen.
And it's been done before. They did a last recession. They had a bunch of positions listed, but they said that they couldn't find talent. And you had the talent gap. You guys may remember it or not. I do, because I was at that time doing a lot of one-on-one coaching, and these positions, they would go in, they would interview, and then after 6 weeks they say, well, we still need to see more candidates.
Let's see. We need to see more to compare. We got to compare a little bit more.
And now it's sort of the same tactic, except they're saying, well, we want to put you through 14 interviews before you get the job. Yeah. And it's not like the 3 or 4 that used to. So what's changed? And nobody's able to answer that with a straight face. Go ahead.
But I think it does go back to what Jack was saying, is they don't really know. They don't know what the future of work for them is going to become, those companies. And they're trying to, I guess, hedge their bets, right?
Yeah.
We want somebody who can kind of do both, but who's ready to do whatever we tell them to do now. I think that's what's going on. And, you look at companies like Google now, they're talking about, nobody coming back to work for a couple of years, and they built that huge, big complex. But companies are making switches like that. And I think this last round of variant that came out, right, and companies were bringing people back in, and then all of a sudden, we're sending you back out, right? Mm-hmm. After they even hired you.
You're almost there. See, that was the thing. We were like almost there. It was like everything was over. We were done with the pandemic. We can move forward.
And it blew up again, right?
And a stupid Delta variant.
I think it's going to do it again and again.
Right. And if we have another turn of a corner, it's going to be to the job seeker's advantage, no matter what that looks like, because that means the employer was wrong. And
I think Jack brought up a good point on a conversation we had. I think a lot of companies are afraid to make a mistake.
Yeah.
They're so afraid
they are.
to hire a person. They're going to go through all these different panels talking amongst themselves and double checking and triple checking, because they don't want to be the one that if they hire the person doesn't work out. And I think it's almost like analysis by paralysis.
Absolutely. You're so right. Think about it. If the four of us, right, want to go out to dinner, think about how we're going to feel. No, I want, I want burgers. Oh no, I want fish. I want Italian. I want Chinese. It's hard to get an agreement on that. So let alone if you have 10 people in the interview process or 12 trying to figure out and agree on something. It's not easy to get that. It's easier to just say no, and then next. So that's really bad process.
Well, it's usually the industries are the one that decided. I mean, Google, Microsoft, they decided. So all the big tech companies are going to be like that. Twitter said they're working remote. LinkedIn said they're working remote. So they're going to copycat whoever the industry leaders are.
Yeah.
That's what everybody else is going to do.
Yeah.
So the small businesses, they're going to compete in that way for the most part, unless, of course, it's more convenient for everybody. If they started out remote, they're going to, of course, remain remote because that's how they hired. And so that's not a big deal for them. And they're going along and doing their thing while everybody else is saying is sometimes they're even asking the wrong question. It's like, how can we get everybody back? Or how can we control, the spreading fire, so to speak, instead of understanding that fire is going to spread despite your efforts of water, dust, and everything else that you kind of throw at it. So it depends. So we're about to see a shift. We just don't know what that shift is going to look like. And if you're watching us for the first time, feel free to add on to the chat about what we talked about. Thank you, Annette, for watching. She liked what Ken said earlier. All right, Ken. I just want to be Ken scoring points already.
Nice.
But,
right.
But if anybody have anything to add before we head to the next topic. Good deal. All right. Well, this question kind of comes up, and I'm going to have to expand on this, but I would love to hear from you guys as we go on. People are also trying to figure out too how to strategize their own particular LinkedIn strategy, their process, and how they're going to go about it. I mean, really, there's some people I think that do overthink too much on what to post and what not to post. But perhaps for you guys, what are the kind of stories that stand out? Maybe we can put this in a song title. So I'm gonna give you a multiple choice here. Is it are they posting like A, somebody done somebody wrong song, or B, let's work, like the song from Prince, or C, I don't want to work, I just want to bang on the drum all day.
Todd Rundgren.
Yep, there you go. D, work. Or do you have your own title? In other words, what are the theme of the stories for you guys in a song title, and tell us why? We're going to start with Kenneth Lang. What's happening?
I don't know. I have a very contrarian. I think a lot of people now are very frustrated with their jobs, and they talk a lot about the Great Recession or the Great Waiting and all that. So I think about Johnny Paycheck, take this job and blanket. Because a lot of people just don't want to deal with it. And I think the issue is that they don't want to work. They would just as soon work either for themselves or on their own terms. And I think that's really been a big miss in the way the media portrays things. We all want to work, but we don't want to be, especially after having been home for a year. We think we know what to do, and we want to basically sell ourselves to the right place. And anyone who looks for a person like that is actually going to be finding a needle in a haystack, because we want it on our own terms. So that's my song.
Yeah. Okay. Fantastic. I love it. Kevin, go ahead.
I'm more of those. It's only rock and roll if you like it. Right. So if you don't like what you do, find out what you like and create that as part of your brand. Create that as part of your solution that you answer, and build your engagement, your content around that to move you forward. And, you can be personal without giving out a lot of personal information, right? And that's one of the mistakes I'm seeing happening right now, are people who's putting out too much personal information that might affect hireability. And so everything that you do post, you should be thinking about it. How does this move me forward as a solution for what I want to do next, right? You've got to like it. If you don't like it, they're not going to like it either. And so it's only rock and roll if you like it.
That's good. How about you, Jack?
Yeah. Well, if I could follow up, Kevin, with what you're bringing up, what do you feel? I've definitely seen a trend where it's much more, hey, look at my video of me, not necessarily doing something work related, or look at me and my kids, or this or that. Do you think, does that, and I don't know the answer, like, is that maybe better because it humanizes somebody and you get to know, hey, this is Ken's wife and kids, or this is, Mark and his family and so on. So you kind of empathize, or does it detract? You know what I'm saying? Do you have
the balance, right? Showing your kids is kind of talking about your why, right?
Yeah.
In that sense. And often you can take kids stories. Kids do the darndest things, right? And you can translate those into, how does this work in the business world, right? When customers act like they're having temper tantrums, right? How do you solve it? So you can still take a very personal situation that you can focus it into supporting your brand going forward. And I think there are people who are real clever about doing it. And I think it works really well. And you do attach yourselves to them because you can relate to them. If you're talking about 10 years of being addicted to heroin and you're still fighting it, that's a nice share. That might help somebody down the road. But is it going to help the majority of businesses hire you going forward? So you've got to think about it. There's a risk to it, right? It could, it might not. There's probably a little more negative to that one than there is positive. So I just caution people to realize everything that you do out there is part of your brand. So you want to make sure that you are really thinking about, how does this move me forward to where I want to go?
Good deal. We've got someone in the chat that's asking a question. We want to welcome Varsha to the chat. Thank you very much for lending out this question. But from each of you, including me, and I'll give my song here in a moment, but I want to get to Varsha's question. She says, hello from India. Given the combined experience in today's panel, what are the top 3 things you recommend job seekers do on LinkedIn to help their job search? Jack, you go first. What are the top 3 things that people should do on LinkedIn to help their job search?
So I would say number 1, with your profile and how you put it together, that clearly sets forth who you are, what you do, what you're looking to do next. So this way, recruiters could find you, and hiring managers and HR. Then and this is going to be kind of what Kevin and Ken say a lot, once you have a really good, robust profile, you want to kind of market yourself on LinkedIn. And everyone has a different threshold, as you guys were saying, in comfort level. But you have to kind of push yourself out of your comfort zone a little bit, and to interact with people, find people who you feel could be good in your network, that could be good for your career, send them an invite, post on what they say, give comments, then start kind of getting brave and write your own content, maybe put a video. So I think it's a slow progression for people who are starting, just to get the wheels in motion. The profile, kind of find the people you want to get involved with, and then start interacting with them.
Good deal. Ken, how about you?
Well, I would say,
things.
On top of what Jack is saying, think about the about section as is being written for someone else to look at your profile. What's in it for the person? Starting with the fact that the first 2 or 3 lines are the ones there that most people are going to see on the about section first before they select the rest of it. So you want to be able to think about what you did. It's not your resume, and how it can benefit someone else. I also think again, it's not just about posting content, but write down other content, add some text, add something to what people are saying on a post. I think LinkedIn News, there's great articles there, just be part of the conversation. And I think above anything else, just don't be afraid to try stuff. It's a canvas. It's a canvas you can keep changing. So if it doesn't work, try something else. A lot of the basics are still out there, a lot of things to do, but above all, just try things out. I'm not a big video person just because I don't do it that well, but I also don't think it's the best place to start for me. Other people, it's something to consider. But perfect example, I just got a note. Someone today is looking to hire a computer programming teacher for high school. I just found that now, and I'll reach out to my network to find people to see if there's someone there. But you want to engage with people anytime, but not to be afraid to try things, because again, it's not a resume.
Yes, definitely. Though people treat it still like a resume, that's gonna. Kevin, go ahead.
Well, and I think the first thing is you've got to avoid what I call personal blanding, and that is just being boring, right? Accepting LinkedIn's defaults, the 4 shades of gray background banner, the picture of a profile without your picture in there, right?
Mhm.
Accepting things like title at company, accepting bits and pieces within LinkedIn's process that really don't show who you truly are, right? So you got to avoid that personal blanding. You've got to figure out what is it that you do that you love to do, that they want, right? And develop that into your message. And that message is everywhere from visual to even the way you interact within LinkedIn. Things as simple as a job title. People will make up, a job title, and they'll plug it in that little line instead of using the 6,500 market value titles that LinkedIn suggests that all recruiters that use Talent Solution are looking for. So use it. It is the world's largest database of professional resumes. That's really technically what LinkedIn is. And it's a $10 billion company. 60% of the revenue comes from the sale of that one tool, Talent Solutions. If you want to be found, make sure you're interacting with the database in the way that the database wants to find you. So use the drop-down boxes when you get to slots where you're typing something in, you're typing in a title. We did a transition with the head of HR for Yahoo many years ago. Nobody could find him on LinkedIn. His title was Cloud9 Navigator. This is a cool title. It's an internet company, right? Makes sense. He said, well, that's what I got to tell the truth. No, you're Chief Human Resource Officer. And then in the definition below, we said internally known as the Cloud9 Navigator. So nobody at Yahoo got upset. He was discovered within days and recruited because that's what they were looking for. So use the right language, right? And use the database system within LinkedIn to do that. One of the biggest failures I find is people will go down in their education and they will type out what they think is the title of their degree instead of using that drop-down box, which is what the university says is the title of the degree. What happens from the other side, if I'm a recruiter and you put in bachelor's degree, right? And then maybe below you put business administration as a description, I do not find you for having your higher level education because you tried to circumvent and use your own language, use the language of the database to be found. And that's critical because that's how people are getting discovered. So you definitely want to do that. Outside of that, bring in visuals into your LinkedIn. If you want to be known as a team leader, stop saying I'm a team leader, right? Because nobody's going to believe that. Show some pictures of you taking your team on the rope course or kayaking on the weekend or whatever it is, that team building thing, or presenting awards, right? Get those pictures in there, write some stories up, add that rich media to your profile, because we know that we process pictures faster than we process text. We believe what we see, right? And so bring that in. A picture's worth 1,000 words. I couldn't tell you, 1,000 times I'm a team player, but I can show you one picture and you're going to believe it. So bring in your visuals, Yes. I think that's critical. And that's one of the things that makes LinkedIn stand out from a resume, right? You can't put any visuals in your resume. You can definitely do it in here. You can do PowerPoints, you can do videos, you can do, nice picture shots. And I think that's critical in kind of stepping away from that blanding to be looking like everybody else does you no good. You want to brand to move you forward. And I think that's really critical to do.
That's great, Kevin. I'm going to go ahead and precede you because I think I can line up your advice. I had something else, but because you said that, Kevin, I'm going to take it, say, step before you go on LinkedIn or while you're mulling over how to position your profile. I think you should go ahead and decide how your name is going to appear first on Google, then on LinkedIn. In other words, I would even say, and I take this as a cue from learning a lot from Susan P. Joyce over the years and her talking about LinkedIn and LinkedIn SEO, as you're talking about, Kevin, is to see how you're going to appear on first. Reason why I have Mark Anthony Dyson, and Jack knows this, is because there were other Mark Dysons on, and there were a bunch of them, but it's not really that common of a name. But for me to stand out, for people to automatically off the bat, I'd added Mark Anthony Dyson because that is my legal middle name. So therefore, I was able to stand out. So therefore, when I stand out on Google, I also want them to find the same thing and be associated with the same person as on LinkedIn. So if you want your personal SEO and your LinkedIn SEO to line up. And then everywhere else you go to meetings, in person, virtual, use the same name so that people automatically know it's you that they want to talk to, or it's you that they should go out and find out more information. That way you make it a whole lot easier even for the recruiters. The other thing I would do to line up with you is to make sure that my job title is also something I could find out on Google. So I want to find out the updated version. And we've talked about this on the show before, Jack, where, people using, for instance, management information systems back from the early 2000s, you're not going to find that on the hottest LinkedIn people in the technology field unless it's a past job. So if you're trying to use that as a present job, and that's just using one title sort of as a way to say that whatever it is in your industry, whatever the change has morphed, you need to try to follow that particular trend so you can be found just like everybody else. Which brings up too is that maybe you don't have the training to call yourself that because that upgraded title is a version. So therefore, you need to somehow either get the training or get the experience you need so you can also call yourself that. Because if you call yourself that without the training and if something is required in your industry, then you definitely will be in trouble because then you're not relatable or you're not even relevant at that particular point. So those are kind of the three things that I would say. I hope that will help Versha to those are things before you get on LinkedIn. Know how your name is gonna be posted, and understand what your position's gonna look like, and make sure that you have the training so that when you're found, there's no question that you're a viable candidate and all that. And I hope that all helps. Did anybody want to add anything to that advice that we've given 12 things that people can do?
The only thing I want to add is I really like the term blanding. That cracks me up. I love that.
I let every time I say it.
That's hilarious.
Personal branding is
the first time you said. I thought you were like made a mistake. You're like whatever you made a mistake. Like I get it. It took a while.
I would even take some of those things that you said, Mark, and make sure you're doing it on your resume as well.
Yes.
So your title on the resume should be Mark Anthony Dyson. I do the same thing with Kevin D. Turner. Because if you Google Kevin Turner, there's the guy at Microsoft, there's the guy at Walmart, there's a football player. But if you Google Kevin D. Turner, there's just me. And so that's what you want to do. And you definitely want to use it that if they use it in an interview, you'll respond, right? I see people with, Jefferson, blah, 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 and they go by Jeff. And somebody in the interview says Jefferson, and the guy's not even looking. Right? He's not responding. That's not really my name. Use your name.
Use your name.
Yeah, keep it unique in the sense that, yes, you can find it on Google. You can find it on LinkedIn. People know how to get to you. And that is key.
Go ahead, Ken.
I was just going to say one thing with all the things we're talking about is look at your mobile profile too. It's not just about the laptop and the desktop because it's going to line up differently. And especially as you go out to other events, you want to make sure that also puts you in the best light.
Yeah, absolutely. because people are going to start using those QR codes
Yep.
now,
Yep.
which have been more popular since the pandemic. Since it's been around about like 3 or 4 years, right? But I think now since the pandemic, it's just easier to do the QR code, and they just takes you right on out. So that definitely, we have Simone as the LinkedIn user is Simone. She's one of our regulars. She says, "This is social media can harm your career, especially when you post negatively. Change negative mindset to build emotional talents, intelligence, and respect. Everyone has issues, and that's posting and positioning yourself." She's referring to back when Kevin was talking, I believe, that said you are who you are, and you can't escape that. But if you see that what you're posting is negative and nobody's not paying you attention, then you should probably change the tone of the way that you've been posting. So that's going to make a big difference. Thank you, Simone, for that. And that says, I've been seeing posts on cover story videos without the person being on camera for the camera shy. What's your take on cover stories like that? Kevin, I know you are a big cover story guy, and you've talked about it in your posts that I've seen. I think, I've turned mine off. I turned mine off because I've yet to really see, I don't know. Have you noticed that there's a
Because
uptick in
so
weakening?
cover stories, just so I know, and for the other people, is that the one on your profile picture that
Yes.
you give that 20-second? Okay,
Yes.
because they discontinued a different thing, right? So that's not cover story.
That's right. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, they discontinued Stories, which was just the short burst of video
Okay.
that you can only see on a mobile app. Believe it or not, Cover Stories was part of that system, but they're keeping Cover Stories.
Okay.
And that's the picture behind the mobile or behind the profile picture. I think they're great in one sense that if you're in kind of a tech position or you're in a media, PR, social media kind of thing, it's kind of expected that you're using that tool. So, I always tell people to make sure that your profile picture also kind of matches you as an image when you get into the video. If your profile pictures are from 10 years ago, but you look really good, right? I've kept it. And then you go into the video and you're like, wow, what truck hit him this morning? That's not going to help you, right? So try to make it blend. You could even start with the same background in your profile picture and use that background into your video. And that looks really, really kind of crisp. I've tried a few different things, and actually Jillian Whitney grabbed something that I started introducing myself during a segment with her on live, and she sent that over, and I'm using that now as my cover story. And I think they are valuable because they give people a glimpse of you as an individual, as opposed to all these kind of pictures and texts and things else they might see. So it gives you a chance to stand out and just, practice it, be professional, have other people look at it before you post it. If you have to do it again, right? But it is one of those things, just like your profile picture, it should look like you, it should represent you, and take the time to do it right. Don't do it wrong just because you want to get it done.
Right. Yeah, I agree. I don't think you have to use every single profile when somebody says use this to stand out. I don't think you have to jump right in it. You have to kind of discern what's going to be right for you.
Exactly.
Don't do like me where I use every medium possible. I do it for a particular reason, but not everybody's me. And I think Jack does too, even to a certain degree. But all in all, to say that, figure out which one's going to with you, stick with that one. That's okay if you stick with one way. I would just say, but perfect it, make it useful, make it effective, make it powerful. Ken, did you have anything on cover story?
I think for me, I tried it because I hadn't done it before. I like the ability to use the featured section to put some of the content that you've done there as well.
Yes.
I think that is such an important thing because then that puts you in the best light. But again, a lot of the stuff we're talking about has two different purposes. The cover story, the feature, that's all marketing from a marketing perspective. If you're looking for a job from a recruiting perspective, probably not going to help you out a lot, but it's part of you and your brand. And I think how you manage to use both is probably the biggest challenge. But above all, it's really about putting yourself in the best light. And I think that's if there's any one specific theme, put yourself in the best light with whatever you do.
Got a question for you guys. You lit a fire, I think, and I think it might be brewing. We can't add more cowbell right now, but we can say, question being is, does video, is it an asset to job seekers? And Ken, I'm going to go to you first, but because I think you have a pretty strong opinion about it.
Well, I think. What do you mean by video? What do you mean?
Well, really, we could even say any video at this particular point, and I have a reason for this, because there is still this underground argument in the career space, as you guys know, that video's bad for older people and it's good for younger people, and all of that kind of argument. I think it's good for everybody because that's the way you're going to show up at some particular point in the interview process and throughout your career. That's a given. There's no way to avoid it. But I would love to hear you guys' perspective on video, because I think it's still a very hot topic amongst us and for a lot of job seekers as well. Go ahead, Ken.
I think if you're genuine in a video, there's no harm by it. And sometimes the first video I put on is, well, this is my first video and this is what I'm trying to do. And you just give it a shot. I mean, I think the biggest challenge is if you don't try, you're not going to succeed. And every time you do a video after, you'll get that much better. But try not, it's not about perfection. It's about, this is who you are. And the fact that you're willing to go out there and try something, is it something that's right for everyone? Maybe not to the same extent, but I think everyone should try it. It's good practice also if you're going to be on an interview, having a video interview or something like that. It's all good practice. You're talking to the camera. It's just a different camera.
Jack, your thoughts?
Yeah, it's interesting because you read my mind. As we were talking, I think, I don't know if I heard on the radio or just saw a headline that TikTok for the first time had more clicks or more views than YouTube, which is kind of mind-blowing. You think about it. And I was thinking, why wouldn't people start putting, people who are looking for a job, put on videos about themselves and looking for a job? Now, it sounds kind of maybe weird at first, but if you're creative and thoughtful about it, I can really resonate, especially when a lot of people aren't doing it. So I think with videos, that's going to be an important medium for people moving forward. I don't necessarily buy into that there's going to be biases and discrimination based in it, because I think doing a video, you don't even have to be good at it, but if you could come across the way you want to come across, you could dispel a lot of the myths that are applied. So let's say there's an older person and they're concerned about ageism. If you do a video and you come across, just dynamic and motivated and smart and easy to work with and all the kind of stuff that people, have the opposite view of, then all of a sudden they're like, oh, wow, wait, I didn't expect this. So I have more faith in people in the sense that rather than say, hey, don't do it because it could cause, biases, what have you. I come from the other camp that if you do it well and you put the time and energy, it doesn't even mean, and this goes back to Ken, when you said you did your first video, sometimes I don't think people care if the quality is but if the message is there, the tone is there, the feel, what the person who's watching walks away from, that's more important than like a really, it's almost like when you go to a movie, you see this great, glossy, amazing movie, but the plot is horrible, so it doesn't work, as opposed to maybe an indie film that, you don't have the budget, but it's a really great script and great acting, and you walk away, oh my God, this is wonderful. So I'm in the camp of, I want to see more videos. I think that would be great. I think that could help a lot of people in the job search, because if, let's say, you get overlooked for something, and Ken was talking about this earlier, if you don't have all the ingredients, but let's say you don't have all the ingredients and you have a video resume, because TikTok does have a video resume, and I wouldn't be surprised LinkedIn has one down the road too. And if you could then really, market yourself and sell yourself and not be bland, like Ken is saying, be the opposite of bland, that can make all the difference. And then the hiring manager can say, you know what? They only have 3 of the things we need, but boy, is this person creative and they're just wonderful and they have charisma. Yes, I want on team. So yeah, so that's what I'm thinking. That could be a game changer.
Yeah. And before Kevin and I have you respond, I want to just mention in an article you did earlier in the summer, there were 80 million people following the hashtag career advice before they started even talking about the video resume. Imagine that's where what people either they're following the advice or they're following people who want advice, or the recruiters are, in which they have been following the ones that perform really well to see before there was even a resume. So really, anything you put out video or any content that you put out is really it adds to your web resume, because that's the way people ultimately are going to see it, including recruiters. Everything you do on the web and online is a part of that resume. And it could be as simple as that you joined this, you went to this conference and you guys went out to eat and you showed pictures, because then a recruiter is going to be is going to find that because they were tagged, or somebody in their network was tagged in the picture. And that makes a big deal. But all that to say is that the people are going to go where the people are at. And TikTok is where people are, and people are performing for the jobs. Kevin, go ahead.
But and I think a lot of video is an opportunity. It plays back to, I guess, like Bob Berg's The Go-Giver, right? People buy from people they know, like, and trust.
Mm-hmm.
The ability to do a video, people can have a quicker attachment to you than they can looking at a profile, reading a bunch of text, seeing a bunch of pictures. The video brings out your personality, and people attach to personality, right? More than they distract from it. They attach to it because they know you're real. And by giving you that ability to be real, they're already buying into you in a little bit. And, it is you were saying earlier, Jack and Anthony, about it being kind of a bias buster in a sense. That opportunity is for young and old. I always think of younger people, if they want to get into management, right? If they create a video that shows that they have executive presence, right? That they can present and they can command attention. That breaks that bias of, they're too young, they're too inexperienced. I can see it in this individual in the video. Same thing with, older people. People, they don't have enough energy. They don't have enough creativity. They're afraid of technology. You blow all those out in your video. And so, you have an opportunity to really use that tool. And I have to say, most of us grew up with television and movies and, streaming on our phones now. We respond to video. We believe video as much as we believe pictures, sometimes more than we believe text. That's how video can sell. And so, I tell people, embrace it. And I think that's one of the things that is going on right now within LinkedIn is they are developing this native video process. That's why they're getting rid of what we were talking about stories earlier, because it was clunky. You only had to do it on your mobile phone. You couldn't do it on your laptop. You couldn't do it on your desktop. So they're creating that, and they're going to give opportunity actually to have native video on your profile. So that featured section, the first thing could be that video of you, right? Your resume video, this is how I solve your problems video. This is me. This is what I like to do on the weekend, skydiving, whatever it is, right? You can then really craft your brand. And again, going back to, it is definitely anti-personal branding. You're in control of it.
Yeah, and I agree with that. I've always said that companies, they can't train great personalities, so they have to go out and hire great personalities, and video is the best way for most people. Some people can do it through writing and through pictures and through what they post. They can show their personality in that sense and their overall timeline, which I think people ultimately that recruiters and employers will look through. But personality is something that is a great commodity if you have it, and video is the quickest way to put it out there for the world to see. We are coming close to the top of the hour, gentlemen. Boy, we could have gone on a couple
went
of
quickly,
hours
huh?
with this, right?
You just got me wound up.
Right? Yeah, next thing I knew, it was 44 minutes to the hour, and depending where you're at, it's like, oh, I've got to go to lunch or I got to go back to work, whatever that is. But thank you, guys. Annette says that you all rock. And she's got to bounce. She's going to Clubhouse. That's what it is. I know it like that. But anyway, starting with Jack, what do you got coming up that the people should know about?
Right. Actually, I have something interesting this week and next week. I'm going to give a little talk at Harvard, which is kind of posh and fancy, huh? So it's
fancy.
It's dealing with two classes. One for kind of the undergraduates who are going in for human resources and figure out what they want to do with their lives when they get out. The other is for kind of more experienced people who are kind of trying to get in touch with what's going on with this whole new world. You know, how am I going to kind of navigate hybrid work, remote work, and all that? So that should be pretty neat. That should be, kind of cool.
Well, very nice. Kenneth, what you got going on, man?
Well, Jack and I are going to be having a conversation tomorrow at 1:00 on my LinkedIn Live. Very much looking forward to that. And then next Tuesday we have Lions and Tigers and Resumes. Oh my! We got Virginia Franco coming back. Claire, we're going to talk all about that. My LinkedIn Live is every week. Mark, I have to get you on, of course.
Nice.
And same with Kevin, but I think it's all about paying it forward, and definitely we're all here to help and support. And Jack, congratulations on Harvard. Let me know how it goes.
Yes. Looking forward to that conversation next week. Be sure to put that on the itinerary. Kevin, what you got going on people should know about?
Always staying busy. There's a lot of new LinkedIn features coming. I always tell people, if you want to know about them, follow the hashtag new LinkedIn feature, and I'll keep you in the know. That's what I do. That's what I love.
I love that, by the way.
I dig into the code so I can find these things out before hopefully anybody else does, and give you that little extra advantage. So that's what I do all the time.
Yep. Wonderful.
Can I ask you guys a quick question before we break?
Sure.
I know we talked about the video, and you guys are on Clubhouse. What do you think is audio? Is that going to be a thing for job seekers? Is that a thing now, or is that something that's going to happen?
I've seen people find employment through Clubhouse, being in particular rooms and just saying, hey, I'm really interested in that. And somebody else, maybe a moderator, another speaker says, hey, let's talk. And so people are finding an opportunity there. You've got to add value to the conversation. If you can add value to conversation, obviously you can create this exposure. Clubhouse is still new enough. It may have peaked a little bit, maybe coming down a little bit, maybe going back up a little bit. Who knows? But the right people are still there, and they're still talking. And you can get in front of CEOs and CTOs and CMOs that you could never pick up a phone. You could probably never send them an email. They wouldn't answer it, but they'll talk to you with great respect, and you can win them over during that time frame. So I think audio is fantastic, that whole process. I know LinkedIn wants to do the same thing on LinkedIn. To me,
Twitter.
Twitter just started that, right?
Is like
Twitter Spaces,
is like having a conversation in the office break room, and you're worried the boss is going to come in. So I don't know if it'll work on LinkedIn, but it definitely works on Clubhouse. And we have a group with Sonobal and Jules White and Stephen Quinn. We do every Monday, and that's Fab Four and Friends. And we've been doing this every Monday since January, and it's an incredible group, and it's built into its own tribe. And that's what's great about it. So
Yeah,
there's a lot of
If
opportunity
you
that
can
does
catch
come.
those, if you can catch those are wonderful. I've been falling in and out of love with Clubhouse. There's just sometimes
Well,
it doesn't work for me, man. It's like I try to look for my tribe, and my tribe is which you guys are a part of. I don't see y'all all the time at the time that I'm on, but maybe I think timing has a lot to do with it, who you connected with, and sometimes it just you may need to connect with more people to get more out of it. So I think
Yeah.
Well, it is the
some of us
it's navigation.
yeah, some of us took the summer off also, so we're going to come back in the fall because we
that's
decided,
right.
a bunch of us said we need to regroup instead of doing the same thing every week. It becomes boring and all that. We need to kind of rebrand because after a month or so, I was like, what else are you going to talk about? So there's 3 rooms or so that I have that are going to be going on when we rethink what we're going to do. So I think
Yeah.
that's what will happen a lot over the summer.
Yeah, I was a part of a few good rooms, and then summer got kind of boring. So
Yeah.
I don't know. We'll have to make. But anyway, I didn't mention that my song was the night shift, and I think that's what Simone was trying to say. She said another shift. I think she meant the night shift by the Commodores. You can comment if you want, Simone, if you want. But anyway. Yeah, I was just on NTD News doing a segment with them on the pandemic unemployment. So I got a chance. I also wrote an
Nice.
article on my blog about suggestions on what people can do if you're part of those whose extended benefits ran out on Monday. So you can go to the Voice of Job Seekers if you want to check that out. In the meantime, thank you, gentlemen, for joining us. We have
Thanks, guys.
past the
Thanks
top
a
of the
lot.
hour. And join us next week as we have got a lot of guests coming up in October and September and October. So feel free to join us. You are listening and watching Job Seeker Nation. Catch us on YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter, along with LinkedIn for the rebroadcast. So thank you very much. You
Take care,
all
guys.
have a great day.
Thanks for coming on.
Take care.
Thanks,
Have a great
Ken,
day.
Kevin.
All right.
Take care, Mark.
Guys.
Bye, guys.